Welcome to Melt University's 2020 summer program. This year, our virtual intern program will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Here's your host, President and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome back, students. Summer 2020 virtual Melt University. We roll on. We've got just an amazing series of podcasts. Your responses have been just enormous. Your sharing has been just enormous. We really appreciate your participation. We really appreciate your feedback. And today's special guest is, one of my favorite people. We've talked about, being attracted to people that share your values, that share your viewpoint, servant leaders. We've heard from a lot of them, but Tim Zulawski is a dear friend. He personifies a lot of those things that we've talked about and think of value. He is, and I've known him for a long time. I've seen his climb. He is now the Chief Revenue Officer and Senior Vice President of AMB Sports and Entertainment. But what does that mean? That AMB is Mr. Arthur M. Blank, the founder of Home Depot, the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, the owner of the Atlanta United, the owner of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and a major foundation player in the city of Atlanta. And Tim is responsible, no big deal here in a COVID environment, for most or all of the revenue that flows through those organizations. But what I love about him is that, first of all, not only I love his humility, but you're talking about a climber and a grinder. Attended University of New York College at Fredonia, received a master's at Springfield College. And as I recall, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he started his climb, his internship program through the Buffalo Bills many, many years ago, and now has risen through the ranks of the Falcons and Mr. Blank's organization. He's been a great guest and special guest for us. He's spoken to our students many times. And so, Tim, welcome to Melt University today.
Vince, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to speak to the participants in your program. And thank you for what you do in leading Melt and the creation of Melt University and helping shape the minds that will lead the sports and entertainment industry for many years to come.
Well, you're welcome. And so I did have it right. You did start at the Buffalo Bills, right?
Yeah, I went to high school till noon, and I worked for the Bills from 1 to 6. So I am now I'll be 44 this fall, and I'll be entering my 27th year in the sport entertainment business.
That's amazing. So we always, one thing that we really, there's a couple things we really key on. Many things in this, but we key in on passion for pursuing your passion and pursuing what you do. So clearly at an early age, you identified that you had I'm assuming you played sports, but you had a passion for the business of sports. And so talk about that passion, and then talk about, at 15 years old or 17 years old, how did you crack? And by the way, I love that team back then. It's I just loved the Buffalo Bills for many, many years. But how did you crack and get into that? And that's a pretty ballsy move at 16, 17 years age.
Well, Vince, I usually like to use these as opportunities to find out what your audience really cares and give them some value. So I apologize to the audience, and I'm going to spend a few minutes on myself. The background was, as I've always been an entrepreneurial mindset. I get to explore that today, leading Arthur's businesses. And I actually owned and rented a space for a sport trading card shop. For those probably listening today, they don't even remember trading cards or know of trading cards, or probably
right.
Today. But back in Vince and my days, they were paper and eventually got glossy and potentially even had some gold foil to them. But I from seventh grade on, I rented space in a major retailer's sporting goods store, and I sold trading cards, and I did that into my senior year. I'm not a smart person, but I grew up in a farming type of environment, and so work ethic is paramount and is in my genes. And so I was able to actually finish my New York high school requirements early, but in New York, you have to go to school until noon. And so just as luck would have it, I went into the guidance counselor's office and asked about internships, and there was a program about it called Action Learning Internships, and the woman doing the interviews for it, lo and behold, happened to turned out to be the wife of a gentleman named Denny Lynch, who was the PR director for the Buffalo Bills. And
Wow.
And the young lady, Denny's wife, liked me for whatever reason, and set it up where I went and interviewed with her husband, and they set it up where it wasn't, where I got an internship from 1 to 6 every day during high school. So I went to school till noon, got my car and, changed into my suit and drove over to Orchard Park, New York, and did whatever Denny asked me to do, whether it be, organizing media guides or transcribing reporters' notes so that the press could, players' comments, so that the press could have them for, going out to the community. So that's how I got started.
That is unbelievable. Think about, and we always talk about the, you're successful because it's sort of the, opportunities, the intersection of luck and timing, but you had to go in there and take that shot. And then you had to impress this lady enough for her to say, hey, my husband's the PR director for the Buffalo Bills, and I'm going to open this door for you at 17. You go over there, you meet Denny, and then you're willing to do most anything. Back in the day, our students forget we didn't have all these fancy technology tools that they have now. So literally, something that takes a minute now used to take an hour back in the day. And so, how long did you stay with you work with the Bills as you were attending State University of New York?
Yeah, so I did it off and on. I interned for them a couple times. Fredonia State, which is where I went for my undergrad, also was the training camp home of the Bills, and so I would spend my summers interning for them, and did that well through undergrad. And one of the gentlemen that was the head of strength and conditioning there, a guy named Rusty Jones, went to Springfield College, and this is back in '93, and so he said, look, if you want to, I was a young impressionable kid, if you want to advance in sports, there's 3 schools that really push the sport management discipline: UMass, Springfield, and Ohio. And he was a Springfield grad, so I ended up going over to Springfield, and so that's how I got to there. And I was on the grounds of Springfield maybe 2 minutes, and found out that the American Hockey League's governing body was down the street, and so I actually set it up where I interned for the American Hockey League while I went and got my master's.
So the thread I'm hearing here, and students, you're hearing this thread as well, is that Tim continued to be aggressive in seeking opportunities. He found those opportunities. He went and knocked on those doors. He went and took those shots. He figured out, hey, Buffalo Bills, American Hockey League, if I have a passion for being in the business of professional sports, which was a hell of a vision back at 17, 18, 19, and 20, you were willing to knock on those doors, take that shot, and accept any responsibility these people were willing to give in. Because one thing I'm encountering with our students, and we talk about it a lot, is that they have this expectation that everything is going to be an instant gratification. In 6 months, they're going to be in the CEO's chair. But you are a personification of just working and grinding and accepting these things. Talk about your philosophy about that.
When we have a number of associates that come in as interns, seasonal or for camp or for full season, and I look at it in a number of ways. Getting your undergrad degree shows me you can learn if taught. Getting your master's degree shows me you can learn on your own. My philosophy with interns that come in is you want to ask what the end goal of whatever you're being asked to do or what the project is. Not in the, I happen to have a 2 and a 4-year-old, and not in the why mindset, like why this, why that, but rather a true understanding. Because, and I'll use a football analogy, if as an associate, as an intern that you're working with somebody, you can understand the big picture, then you get the opportunity to be more of what I'll refer to as a pitch play. So in a typical running sequence, you could have a handoff, a draw, or a pitch. And if you put that in the work person's context and work life context, you on a handoff, the line keeps moving, the quarterback moves, but the running back still has to take it from the quarterback to keep moving. In the draw, so that's like someone telling you, hey, go do this. And you're like, okay, I understand it. And I go, okay. But you just do kind of what has been asked of you. You don't necessarily see the big picture. Mm-hmm. The draw format is the person that always asks the manager, well, how do I do it? Show me how to do it. And not that people don't need to learn. Everyone needs to learn. Don't get me wrong in what I'm saying here, but it's the person who, in essence, the manager starts to build a mindset of, I'm just going to do it because frankly, they get frustrated at working with you. And then you got the pitch format. And the pitch format is you understand the big picture. The manager says, hey, we need you to do this. And because you understand the big picture, you not only do it, but you do it efficiently. You might even improve it. You might have even bring new ideas to the table. Now you start to show that you can work independently. Now you also free up that manager's time so that he or she can be doing whatever else they were focused on. And so now you're adding value. And so, my mindset in general is to try and always understand the big picture. So I get the opportunity and the pleasure to lead, between full and part-time, a couple hundred people and 130 plus full-time people. And what I really focus on with them is, where are we trying to go? And what is their role? What's the person in front of them's role? And what are the person in back of them role? And I'm a person that a lot of the time I try to convey messaging through analogies. And so, and with my collective team, I tease them of, if we all want to go to Tahiti, most people would say yes. But we happen to have a rowboat. That's our way of getting there. And so we got to all work together in order to efficiently get there and for us all to enjoy the promised land of Tahiti. So, what I some core principles I would say is be willing to do what other people are not willing to do. So simply put, if you're willing to work harder, work longer, work smarter, do things that other people are not willing to do, i.e. pick up the phone and cold call someone, go up to that person that you don't know and introduce yourself, your product, spend those extra hours, you're just going to achieve more than the person who says no at any one of those levels. Then it's, another piece that I'm focused on is understanding the big picture. What are you really trying to do? Because then you digest information differently. And as you process that information, you can make smart and efficient moves, both for yourself and time and the organization, in both a time equity and financial return. So, I would say two core things would be understand the big picture, your role in it, and then be willing to do what other people are unwilling to do.
I tell you what, and that is so valuable advice, and I've used it myself for many years and still do. If you are willing to, if you can make yourself an indispensable part of an organization or a program, you'll always have job security. You'll never get fired because Tim is going to know who those go-to people are within that organization. I think that's invaluable. So let's talk about your climb, because I've always just been fascinated with your career with with Mr. Blank and the Falcons organization. So you get your master's. You've worked with the AHL, and then what happens?
Then I do a 1-year externship at Disney. So one thing I would say to this audience, and everyone's got a different path. So I finished my undergrad. Ironically, my undergrad's in management information systems, so I wrote computer code of all things.
I didn't realize that.
Business degree along the way, and that is not. For those who maybe I get the pleasure to meet in the future, you'll know that that's not a good career path for me, writing computer code. I interned for the Bills off and on. The most money I made interning for the Bills for either the season or summer was $600.
Wow.
For American Hockey League, and I made nothing. I did it for free. Mm-hmm. Then I went to Disney on a 1-year externship, and I got paid $13,000. Mm-hmm. So by the time I'm 23 years old, I have interned for the Buffalo Bills for a number of years. Mm-hmm. I've interned for the American Hockey League. I've done an externship for Disney, and the most money I've made is $13,000. Mm-hmm. And I'm a pretty prideful person, so I wasn't asking mom and dad for money, frankly. And not that anything's wrong with that. If you can get support, I would say for wherever you go, have a support network there, for goodness sake.
Right.
have friends and family that can, throw you an extra bedroom and can help get you along because, and don't feel sorry for me by any means, but, living, your week and it's 2 boxes of cornflakes, generic ones at that and a bottle, a thing of milk. That's what you do when you don't have money coming in. Right.
That's right.
And so, but I got my first opportunity after my externship at Disney. My first full-time job was with the Tampa Bay Lightning in 1999, 2000 season, which we were atrocious. So if someone wants to go back and look at the stats, we were really bad.
Right.
I was selling hockey in Central Florida, a sponsorship position. So now I'm 23, turning 24 years old. My first full-time job, $23,500 and 5% commission on what I sold. Welcome to the sports and entertainment business. We did about 170 events a year between the Lightning, Tampa Bay Storm, and the events at was the St. Pete Times Forum. And so you're huffing in legitimately 70 plus hours a week. And I had strings. I was there for 2 years. I had strings of 70, 80, 90 straight days without a day off. Mm-hmm. Because you did both the sales and the activation, and you did it for hockey, arena football, and any concerts you sold in.
Wow.
So, that gets me to being, roughly 24, 25 years old.
You had been in the grind though since 15, 16, 17. So you've almost a decade in the grind. Yeah. So you're at Tampa. By the way, when you say hockey and Tampa, that seems to be somewhat incongruous. So I'm glad you set that up. But what people don't realize, and we'll get into this in just a moment, but whether it's a team or a venue, if you don't have any activity or action being driven by that venue, which you're in the situation now, I mean, you're not creating revenue for the organization, and you're certainly not driving value for sponsors because they're not getting that exposure that typically would in that venue. So from Tampa, is that when you made the jump into the Falcons?
Yeah, and so Tampa Bay, my first deal, but before coming to the Falcons, my first deal just to kind of level set things was JM Smuckers, a $3,500 associate sponsorship of the Tampa Bay Storm playoff game, which we lost.
$30,000.
$3,500.
$3,500. I'm glad I clarified that.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're rolling in it at 5% at $3,500.
Yeah. What is that? About $175? Yeah,
maybe give or take.
Pre-tax. Yeah. So now I will say, look, and this is the side of doing stuff others aren't willing to do, and as far as sales, most people don't want to be in sales. I mean, this is a harsh reality. If you want to make money in the sport and entertainment business, you're going to need to be on the sales vertical. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. Like when I say money, real money, everyone can get paid and everyone can get a living. I'm not saying you have to be in sales is the only way to be in the business. But, I was 23,005 base. And by the end of each of those years, I was making close to 70 grand. So It was enough, in order to, make a decent income. And a guy who was living off $13,000 all of a sudden making 70 grand, I felt like, the king of the world. Mm-hmm.
Which means you were grinding and closing a lot of deals.
Yes,
you were finding nickels and dimes in the seat cushions.
Yes, I had my range of deals. I remember was JM Smucker at 3,500, and I did their largest deal in my 2 years there at 275 grand to a company who's no longer in business called Thompson's Computer Warehouse. Mm-hmm. 5% commission on 275 grand. And the 5% commission on the $3,500 deal. I sold whatever I could get a package together that made sense for someone that the benefits outweighed the costs, and they move forward. Mm-hmm.
And Tampa's not a giant metropolitan market, so you don't have as big of a corporate base either. So you were defying another set of odds.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I had plenty of meetings, and I had one with a young lady from Clearwater Mattress. I remember I went in and she asked me what dashboards were, and asked me if I actually came into the hockey arena when you have all the beaches. I knew I didn't get that deal. I knew that was going to be a tough sell from the moment she started asking me those questions.
Well, let me tell you, you just hit on something we talk about a lot, and I want you to expound on this. So people say, well, Vince, what do you do for a living? Tim, what do you do for a living? And I say, I'm in the rejection business. I get told no 99.9 times out of 100. And what we tell our students is NO does not spell the word no. It's the first two letters of not yet. And so even at the lofty level that you're on, probably every day or damn near every day, I mean, you're told no far more many times you're told yes. So talk to our students about your philosophy of no, because you got to be the poster child for this. You got to be relentless.
Yeah. So, look, you're going to get rejected, plain and simple. I used to, in particular, when I was selling, I would say day in and day out, I still actively sell because I have a passion for it, but I don't get the core opportunity to do it in the same mindset. I'm always selling, whether it's selling internally or selling externally, whether it be for sponsorships or events or the like. But, the reality is, you're calling somebody when they're not expecting to be get a phone call from you, to ask them to buy something they weren't expecting to buy, and ask them to spend money on something that they weren't planning to spend, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you now have the obligation, I would say, before you even make that call, of doing your research. So a key of my success, frankly, and I try to share this with my sales team or anyone, and it goes back to doing the things that other people are unwilling to do, is preparation. So before I made cold calls, I would, if they're a public company, I read their 10K or their annual report. You get smarter in business, plain and simple. You understand how balance sheets work. You understand how companies are set up. You understand how to ask intelligent questions based off of where that company is going. The more you can understand and solve people's problems, the more value they will have both in you and the product you're offering. And so I would do the research to understand people's weaknesses so that I could try and mitigate them through our relationship, and their strengths so I could try and amplify them throughout our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Even with that, in general, because, cold calling in particular, and it's even harder today as people move to cell phones and away from desk phones and the like, and it is one where I would measure my success based off of my voicemail light being read, based off of how many people I spoke to live, and based off of a list of people who I prospect, done that research on, called, and then subsequently could either move on to a meeting or cross off as they're not a prospect.
Mm-hmm.
And so success for me, as simple as, literally coming back to my desk and my light was red. I knew I was making enough calls. That was my trigger. That I was making enough calls. I had a voicemail.
Isn't that amazing how we used to measure and gauge ourselves with those red lights blinking?
Yeah. Right. Like,
Right.
so, the rejection aspect, you got to remember, it's not personal. When someone says no to the Atlanta Falcons, they're not saying no to Tim Zulawski. When someone says no to an idea that Vince puts forth, they're not saying no to Vince. They might be saying no to the idea.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. I want you to talk about that a lot, because we're passionate, we're creative, we're emotional. But if anything I could impart on these kids is don't take no personal.
Correct. I'm very fortunate that my wife cannot see or hear, and thus she stays married to me. But I've teased her that if I had the mettle as a younger man of being willing to be rejected, I would have dated a lot more.
Right.
The reality is, going out there, if you want a guaranteed no, don't ask. It's that easy.
Bingo.
If you want to have an opportunity at success, again, do something other people are not willing to do. Research, understand them, present an opportunity that you think makes their life better, their life in their job, their company. When everybody wants something that makes their lives better, and equally, if you haven't done the research, they may have the product you are offering, and thus they don't have a need. So again, it may not be about your product, but maybe you haven't done enough research to understand. And I'm not saying to do research for paralysis, if you will, because one thing that I've always tried to measure myself as well is, am I doing too many non-sales things that are preventing me from selling? Right. Because it is natural. And I would say this to that audience, it's natural to have fear. I've been selling for 25 years. and please, again, do not take this as conceit, but I've literally sold multi-billion dollars worth of stuff.
Well, I was gonna tell our, because you're very modest, but I was gonna tell our students and our listeners. I mean, you sold one of the biggest deals in the world with the Mercedes-Benz name on the dome, and so, but the same principles applied to that deal as probably the 3,500 one to Smuckers. I mean, in the end, right?
That is correct. And so it's preparation, a willingness to call, a willingness to find out the person who is your end decision maker. So I'll give you another trick. Don't call bottom up. When Vince tells his lieutenant, whether it be a he or a she, that he needs something done, Vince signs the front of the Melt Associates checks, and so it gets done. If the person who's got 6 days on the job asks for something to get done, it may take a while. And the other thing is Vince creates the budget of Melt. And so he could choose to, if someone's trying to sell Melt on something, he could choose to cancel something because he saw more value in what was presented to him. So by getting to the people who create the budget, and by getting to the people who run the organization, and by getting to the people who understand where the business is going to in the future, and you've done your homework to do so, you got the opportunity to really, I would say, tap into a yes and tap into money that otherwise would not have come from a person who has a budget. You know, a real basic analogy would be if my 4-year-old son went to the candy store at $5, he's never spending more than $5. If they got to me and convinced me that my son needed something that was $500, they got a shot at the $500 thing. So that's again the fear. People a lot of times call to the lowest level because they feel like, okay, I've gotten up the nerve to make the cold call of the company I don't know, and I'm talking to the ex manager. When the reality is there might be 17 rungs of decision makers above said manager, and so you're going to spend a lot of time, effort, and energy, and potentially get no's along the way that the person way up making the decisions would have said yes to.
Right.
So, my advice to the listening audience would be, and then I know we're focused on selling and that side of it, but would be to get into the people, do the research, and then get in at the highest level you can get into, and impress them on how you can add value to them, to their businesses, how you can amplify what they're doing well, and how you can mitigate their problems. If you do that, they're going to want to say yes to what you're proposing.
Well, and you've been reading our script here, and I know our students are listening because they've heard it. But you just unpacked a lot of things. We talk about preparation, knowing your target, know the story of Tim, know he started out as an intern with the Buffalo Bills, because every interaction that a potential employee is having with Tim Zulawski is an audition, and we try to explain that to our kids because it's a dogfight. You get hundreds of resumes, thousands of resumes a year. Be prepared, know your target. And we have a saying in sales that you say and I say is that never take no from somebody that cannot say yes. So figure out who the hell in that organization can say yes, and then build your value proposition whatever it is. And and Tim, my pet peeve is I'll get these generic resumes, on a generic, careers at Melt that says I'm Joe Smith and here's my resume and I need to make $1 salary. I immediately flush those, as opposed to saying, dear Mr. Thompson, War Eagle, great success at Melt. I worked 4 years in college. I can bring value to your organization as a social media rep or whatever it is. And so you've unpacked a lot of things. And the next thing I want you to unpack, but what we're really, really fascinating and we're really learning in a lot of these podcasts, is that it looks glamorous to work for the Falcons and the United and the Stadium, and Mr. Blank, in a lot of ways it is. But within now professional teams and professional sport, it's a sport. It's why they call it sports business. Where are you seeing, particularly in a COVID and a post-COVID world, and we're going through this great growth period of, the diversity and these discussions, a lot of these discussions that we're having, where do you see, because we got a lot of college liberal arts guys and, PR degree, communication degree, but where do you see future opportunities emerging and lying in from the perch you occupy if you were going to share that with our kids?
Sure. Look, I would say from the person who's coming out of college, or if you could prep yourself, a person that wants to sell, there's always going to be an opportunity for people who want to sell, period. Because so many people don't want to sell. Then analytics. We've gone from an organization that had, 5 years ago, couldn't even spell analytics, to every department now has an analytics person embedded in them, relative to their internal operations or external operations or both. So, and I have several people in the analytics space, given the various touch points and products we offer.
So when you say analytics, are you trying to figure out who that person is coming to your game, who's buying your season ticket, what will make them renew? Is that what you're, and how they're impacted by the experience in the stadium? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, and yes. I'm also trying to figure out, which streets, if I only have $10 to advertise, what are my 10 best streets to advertise on with that $10, so to speak? Or what zip code, or what method, what's giving me my rate of return, where, not analytics. Look, information and data can always create a paralysis, because you can say, I want more, and there's always going to be more. But we use analytics to determine estimated show ratios, so I can adjust stadium operations. So I'm not spending for extra guest and services or food and beverage or security if I'm going to have a lighter show, or I'm employing more if I'm going to have a heavier show. We use it for ticket pricing, frankly. Whether it be self-promoted concerts that we've done, like ATL Live, where we stood up, 2 country shows and sold out 80,000 tickets in 90 days, or it be Garth Brooks, what we price them at and where we go to. We use analytics on where we're buying media based off the rate of return of the ticket buyers, as an example. We use analytics on the demographics of our fans, so that then that might spin off into food and beverage offerings, that might spin off into retail offerings. We use analytics relative to the performance for our sponsors, right? So there's various ways. People like data, and they like data that tells a story. And really, the analytics profession is the study of data. And so, and being able to tell a story from it so that you can make informed decisions. And making, myself and others are making multiple decisions every day, every hour of every day. And so the more information we have with the most important subjects at hand, the better our ability to connect the dots in the right places.
Now we've heard this over and over again, is that the data and the fanalytics and the analytics and then the subsets of all of that, forget about the performance of the athletes and all that type of stuff, is that it is a giant and burgeoning career opportunity. Another opportunity, fortunately or unfortunately, is how COVID and a post-COVID world is going to impact fans' attendance, fan experience, and fan expectations and fan safety. In the perch, and you're one of the top executives in this space, in the perch you occupy with one of the most sophisticated venues in the country. Where are you seeing this breaking? Where are you seeing the vision? And within that, where are the career opportunities going to lie? What can we all expect once we get to the other side of this, praying that we do sooner than later?
Well, what we have seen for, I would say, 2+ years, and it's being amplified even more, is content is king as well.
So we hear that a lot. We hear it a lot.
Vince, you and I would argue that cash is king. Well, it's got a sister or brother, and content's that. And so when you go to another career space, is the content creation and storytelling effectively for enterprises that results in engagements of fan base, so that people spend more time consuming us, right? Then we start to win that consumer in their heart and mind. When you win in a heart and mind, you win their wallet. You win their time. You win any consideration that they can give you. So I would say what I've seen in the COVID environment right now is people still want to connect and deliver, and people want their sports. And so the ability to create content and humanize. One thing that COVID has done, interestingly, through the Zooms and Teams and all various forms of video chats, has created a platform by which you're humanizing associates at large, and you're getting a lot of, one-on-tens or one-on-ones, but you're also, necessity is the mother of innovation. And in this unique environment, and our desire to deliver even within this unique environment has resulted in some innovations and innovations that'll stay. And so, whether it be, watching your Falcons on your phone while being able to tie in a team's experience with it, and 3 or 4 other people are watching with it, or whether it be, we normally would have had a physical training camp, and instead, where we won't have a physical training camp and player, autographs and the like, we're doing 15-minute sessions with a player with, groups. And so now, 4 to 10 people will get on a chat and be on that chat with, Alex Mack. And they'll get to see Alex Mack in his t-shirt in his home, and they'll get to understand and feel who Alex Mack is, not Alex Mack, the guy who just came off the field, in a, for lack of terms, in a fist fight of a 90-minute practice, fighting for the life of his job, and he doesn't know you from Adam.
Right.
And so, I do believe in, just kind of coming back to, I think, where you were going with COVID, we're going to come out of COVID sooner than later, hopefully. I believe that the iceberg that is COVID has some cracks in it. The sucker hasn't melted yet by any means.
I agree with that.
It has cracks. People want socialization. And what we have the pleasure of doing in the sport and entertainment business is we do get the opportunity to galvanize society. And when you galvanize society and put on great content, you bring them out from their everyday. So when they have that everyday job or that they're doing, and it's a job, it's not the passion that Vince or myself get to experience. We work, but we work in something we're crazy passionate about. Not everybody's as fortunate. And when they go to their concert or their football game or their baseball game or their soccer match or whatever it may be, you take them for that period of time into a different place in with their friends, with their family, with their loved ones. And then the amazing thing is you're doing it in the masses. So all of a sudden you're getting a movement. You're getting, some of my most favorite moments in this business are not the deals I've closed. Yes, they're rewarding to my family. It's walking out on the field or pitch and looking up and seeing 70,000 people cheering and hugging and high-fiving of every race, religion, creed, color, because they all care about the Atlanta Falcons. And when we went to the Super Bowl, nothing galvanized Atlanta like the Atlanta Falcons going to the Super Bowl. And when Atlanta United won the MLS Cup, craziness, right?
Yeah.
So that's the joy. When we come out of this COVID and people have been jammed in their homes and they've been really kind of isolated, and maybe isolated in a subsector, we're going to get an opportunity for them to feel hope again. And that's what sports will bring back, especially in the early phases of COVID. Sports is going to bring hope back. Sports and entertainment is going to bring back that joy that it's been stripped away or suppressed, if you will, right now. And it's going to be awesome. And for all of us who have the privilege of being in the industry, and those folks who are part of Melton University, you are in the industry. So you're going to have an opportunity to pay a dividend to society greater than you think. And so when you're executing those programs that Vince and his teams ask you to do, know that you're giving somebody a lifetime experience that you may not realize, but he or she may be there with their son or daughter, and it may be their first match or a college football game or something that they're at, and they're going to remember it forever. And when you walked up there and you gave them that Coke, or Coke fell and you gave them a new Coke, and you made their experience. And you might not think much of it because you thought you were doing your job, but I can promise you, you helped with keep them in that state of euphoria. And that's one thing I learned at Disney is, when I was at Disney, Vince, and the salespeople of us would struggle with this. But at Disney, everyone's in a euphoric land. They used to not allow dietary products because no one was on a diet at Disney. When we had a deal with Dr. Scholl's that we wanted to do, and the brand police at Disney said no, because as big as Disney is, as hot as it is, and as much pavement as there is, and as many people as there are, people's feet don't hurt at Disney, right? And so,
by the way, our listeners think you're kidding, but I know you're not.
No, I'm not. And so the idea of the euphoria that you get to create in sport and entertainment is what I learned there. And the other thing I learned there that I'll transfer is At Disney behind the stage, it's as murky as any business entertainment is. The business sports and entertainment behind the scenes is not sexy at all. It's mustard packets. It's Disney or Mickey with his head sitting on the golf cart. It's so to speak. Sorry if anyone still thinks Mickey's a real person.
Right.
But my point to that is in front of the scene, you're on a stage. And that's another thing that I would say to the people listening here and working for Vince. When Vince puts you out there, you are representing Melt, you're representing Vince Thompson, you're representing the partner that you're working on, and you're most importantly representing yourself. So you are on a stage. And so I'm not trying to put an amount of pressure, but what you do and how you behave and how you interact, people notice. Whether you think they notice or not, they do. And that'll carry you a long way in your career as well.
Well, typically they are noticing, and there's this has been so fascinating. There's just 2 or 3 things I want to get to. I don't know him personally. I've obviously met him a few times, but I'm just a huge fan of Mr. Blank, Arthur Blank. What's it like working for a guy at that level who's Mr. Blank founded the Home Depot? He's a monster philanthropist. What he's been able to pull off in the contributions to this city, I sit back and think about it. I start feeling bad about myself when I think about his accomplishments. But what's it like working for an individual like that at that level all the time?
Well, you first, you got to understand the person, right? So, Arthur went to the first 1,100 Home Depot store openings.
First 1,100?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, so
wow.
Yeah. So he's a guy that is going to know, whether you know it or not, he's going to know to the most granular detail. He's a forensic accountant that believes that the balance sheet tells the story. He will pressure. He expects people to put in effort, be thoughtful. But above all, you got to think of the customer first. And you've got to, the customer and the person closest to the customer knows the most. I frankly know the least. Arthur would argue that he knows less than me. It is a inverted pyramid and a servant leadership culture. My job, if for those who maybe are from the Northeast and have ever been to a bowling alley, my job is to be the inflatable guards in the gutter, the bumper bowling, if you will, and to keep my team in the middle of the lane.
That's where I usually put my ball.
Right. So my job is to keep us going down the lane successfully. And that starts, and getting back to the analytics, that starts with engaging, surveying, processing data from the front lines to help the people on the front lines do their job better, to ultimately serve the fan. If you, again, amplify opportunities for people and you mitigate the negatives, so if I can somehow teleport people, and for anyone who's already familiar with Atlanta, you'll get this reference. If I could teleport you from Alpharetta into your stadium seat and teleport you back, I would invest in that technology.
No kidding.
Because I would mitigate the drive experience and the time you spent. But inversely, if I can somehow make your experience with the person that you care about sharing that event better, then I've amplified the opportunity. And so working for Arthur is about a maniacal sounds negative, but in the most positive of sense, a maniacal focus on the fan and on the customer, whether it be our PGA Tour Superstore business, whether it be our ranch business, whether it be the foundation, whether it be our soccer business, our football business, our live event business, our college football business, whatever it may be, it is all about who we are getting the opportunity to entertain and work with. And revenue creation comes out of delivering value for them. And so you have to understand them better. The people who understand them the most are the people the closest to them. And so working for Arthur means that you have a process, you are thoughtful, you are for your people, both in the development and having the right people and the right culture. You're ultimately for the fan. And so, we put everything through that lens. and we invest and we pressure and we make decisions. Sometimes decisions, we have people who are very great functional associates, but are not a great cultural fit or cannot
Mm-hmm.
fit with the mindset of the fan first, might be revenue first or whatever it is. And those people find their way out of our organization over a period of time. So, brilliance, I have a great admiration for him. Obviously, I've worked for the gentleman for working on 18 years.
Wow.
But so when I walk into a meeting and all I've sent him is a PowerPoint deck, on the meeting subject, and I feel like he knows 5 years of background on it. Sometimes I shake my head of just how smart he is and how quickly he gets stuff. So, and he's passionate. He's
Mm-hmm.
passionate about his people. He's passionate about the fan. He's passionate about the businesses, and he's passionate about succeeding for the customer. The Atlanta Falcons have not brought the Super Bowl trophy to Atlanta. That will be one of Arthur's happiest days, is when we go down every Peachtree Street with the Lombardi Trophy. And we hope to do that in the near future. We've done it with Atlanta United. And then it becomes about his legacy. He's 70, soon to be 78 years old, and he's accomplished a lot in life, both in business and in life personally. And now he's of a mindset of how we make society better for having been here. So, I get to now see that side of him as well, and know that the revenue we generate, he's turning around and spinning back out into society through his foundation one way or another. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to learn from.
Well, it's interesting. You just hit on something well, is that Mr. Blank works everything back from the perspective of that fan or that customer, because a fan is a customer. And, when you go, any event you go into, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I mean, the experience, I say this a lot. I mean, the experience that you guys have created within that venue has put a lot of pressure on a lot of other professional, and especially the college environments, for what a fan's expectations are now when they go to an event. So I go to a game at the Falcons, and then I go to a game in Auburn, and I mean it's 10, and I'm, with respect to my alma mater, it's 10 or 20 years, apart. I'm on this hot metal seat out at in the middle of the blazing sun on a Saturday versus basically like sitting in my living room when I go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So that's a fascinating perspective, and it falls consistent with what you said about if a potential employee is calling on Tim Zulawski, know their target, know everything about that target, because that's going to grab your attention with the hundreds and thousands of resumes that you're going to get. And Tim, the other thing that we've talked to our kids a lot about is that coming out of a COVID environment, there's so many people unemployed in the marketing services space that it's going to further depress the entry level positions from a pricing and opportunity perspective. And we've actually got one of our successful alumni, and we featured her yesterday on my Lunch and Learn, Abby Farrick. I can tell you, I can see your touch on how she even calls on me to sell me tickets and club suites and club tickets and suites and all that kind of stuff. But people don't think at a guy at your level, you're working for Mr. Arthur Blank. There's so many demands that come on that, plus your additional, job demands. So I think this has been very, very eye-opening for our people. And as we wrap up today, we always like to ask our guests, like, you have any go-to, and you're busy and you're chasing your kids around and all that, but good books you've read in the past that inspired you, maybe podcasts, resource books, something out of the norm, that we always like to have a nice takeaway for our kids to sort of learn from the great ones that are, a saying or anything that's inspired you and informed you over time?
Vince, it's funny. I get to ask this question. I almost feel bad in my response, because what I am not is the person who carves away an hour a night and reads a book. I kind of work till I fall asleep, or I'm taking care of my family. I'm
Mhm.
in one way, I'm a very boring person. I have really,
I don't know if I call you boring, but we'll go with that right now.
I have three passions. I have my family, I have my career, my job, what everything associated with my job, and in fact, returns my health. I like to get a workout in.
Mhm.
And so, absent, I grind those three things all the time. But within
Mhm.
the career and within the work I do, the what data I consume or read is insurmountable. Where a person may pick up a book about, Jack Welch and Six Sigma or whatever.
Mhm.
That is not me. What I am, the person is, I've read, I can't even tell you how many annual reports and 10Ks in my lifetime. And
Probably
the
10,000,
subject,
maybe more. Mhm.
huh?
Probably 10,000,
Yeah, I
20,000.
have no idea, honestly. Because to your point about failure, I have failed a ton. Um,
Mhm.
and I would say this: the old baseball analogy is, if get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you're in the Hall of Fame. If you get a hit 1 out of 10 times in the business world, you're in the Hall of Fame of business.
Mhm. Right.
Um, what I do is I daily consume information. And so I'm what I would almost recall, when people ask me this, it's like a little wormhole. Something will come up, a subject matter
Mhm.
that I need to learn on. And then I go very vertically deep in learning whatever that is. So the music business in 2017, I had zero contacts. Uh,
Right. Right.
Today, I have a very, arguably a very good Rolodex of the most powerful people in the music business. And that's from learning the music business. So I had to, understand not only the people, the industry. And so that's my behavior. I'm a person
Right.
from that kind of work ethic or attitude is, I get into something, I virtually, go down it. If you look at, kind of sayings, and apologize, I got a couple of dogs, one just ran off.
That's all right.
Um, I grew up around a farm environment, and no matter what, you got to show up. So whether we were a 2-14 franchise or a 14-2 franchise,
Right.
I approached it the same way from a football team. With regard to your effort and energy, approaching it the same way. That will pay off. The consistency by which you show up, again, will become something that other people won't do. And you will separate yourself over time with that consistency. And so when it comes to my learning, or what I learn from, I get the opportunity to learn from people.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, I have been blessed with is an observance of other people's behaviors, and in particular, learning the behaviors that I don't want to replicate. So as you go in your career and you get the opportunity to manage people, remember how you were managed. Remember who made you the leader you are, and then
Mhm.
review that so that you don't become the manager that you didn't like, and
Amen.
identify
Right.
what you didn't like about it and try to do the opposite. So whether it was they weren't engaging of you or spending time with you, maybe you feel like you need to spend more time.
Mhm.
So studying, if I would say anything, I try to study is studying people. You know,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
a lot of books are written from a person's mindset based off a certain environment, a certain vertical. Now, if you want just plain business books or books, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective Vehicle,
Mhm.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People, great book.
Mhm.
The Energy Bus, great book.
Now tell me about the energy bus. I haven't heard about that one.
Yeah. So energy buses, look, you have energy vampires, people who come in and their glass half empty. We all know
Ooh,
no one's
yeah.
coming into the idea of coming out of COVID and I can't get a job. Well, if you have an attitude of I can't get a job, you won't get a job. But if you have an
Touche.
attitude of, you know what, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to knock on every door of every opportunity that I think I want to be in, and I'm going to figure out something about them to make me stick out. At some point,
Mhm.
you're going to be successful.
Mhm.
So that's as much about attitude. So, the attitude you bring to the everyday, the effort you bring to the other day, the willingness to learn, the willingness to adapt, the willingness to treat people, some of these things are very common virtues of life. The willingness to treat people the way you want to be treated, will all pay off.
Mhm.
None of them are sexy. None of them are quick, but over time, you'll be rewarded.
Mhm. Well, and I think one of the major things that you hit on, and we just hammer it, is that, you made the reference. You've read thousands and thousands of annual reports. And so as these kids, our students, are beginning to seek out internships or these new virtual internships, or fighting like hell with thousands of other applicants for these jobs, is that knowing that target, knowing who that organization is, knowing their values, knowing their mores, knowing how you can bring value, and know who those decision makers are. I mean, it's again, these things seem like common sense and daily go-tos, but they and it's fascinating for our students to hear from one of the great ones that, you practice the same things that we preach to them every day. And that's why you are in the position you are. But this has been an amazing, fascinating, hour. I mean, I'm really honored and really so appreciative that you would take the time, because you're going crazy right now, to share your wisdom, with our kids. So we really, really appreciate your time, Tim.
Vince, it's my pleasure. For those who are there, soak up the opportunity, leverage the people at Melt. They've been in the business. They've got the networks. This is another thing I tell our interns and the people that are working with us. You're putting time, effort, and energy into honing your craft, and ultimately you're working with Vince, and Vince is he's getting a value too. One of the things you should not leave on the table is the associates that work for Melt, tapping into them while you're in the intern program of Melt University, so that they can open up their Rolodex, because you'll never be more humanized to those associates than when you are there working with them, and they can cut through the clutter. They will have contacts at a lot of teams or brands that you might not even know, that all of a sudden, because you took the time, effort, energy, and asked the person that's the VP at Melt that you were too afraid to ask, hey, would you take a few minutes to help me? I learned, so do some homework. I learned you are from San Jose and you work for the San Jose Sharks. I'm making up something completely. Would you have to know somebody there, and would you be able to, put my resume in front of somebody, or make a call, or connect me? So, because I'd really like to work for the San Jose Sharks. I'm from San Jose. I'm completely making up a circumstance.
Sure, yeah.
But don't leave Melt University. Go back to your home, wherever you're at, and just do it by yourself. You have a resource in front of you, whether you realize it or not, that is the people who are in the industry, successful in the industry. And Vince wouldn't have Melt University if he didn't care about developing the next generation of leaders in the sport entertainment business. So take advantage of that. I'm putting that out there without Vince approving it, but take advantage of it.
Thank you.
It's what I challenge my folks to do, and I hold my staff accountable to helping them. And we've had a really good track record of getting kids placed all over the nation.
No, you do. So like I said, we appreciate it so much. Tim Zulawski, you guys can tell, why he's, why I consider him one of the great ones, in the industry, a great human being, always takes time to help and respond and return phone calls. This has been amazingly invaluable. We talk to you all day. Chief Revenue Officer, Senior Vice President of Arthur M. Blank Sports and Entertainment. Obviously, the Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta United, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. He's been a part of some of the Super Bowls in Atlanta, and some of the huge leader in our city and in our industry. So, Tim, we really appreciate you joining the students of Virtual Summer 2020 Melt University, and we roll on.
Thanks, Vince. Hope you enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with another edition of Melt University 2020.